Hippology contest in January in Denver, Colorado. Hippology is the study of horses. They were coached by the very dedicated volunteer Bruce Brown. Bruce, can I have you stand? Thank you. And they were representing all of Kansas 4-H as they won the Kansas contest in January of 2019. Before I turn it over to the team to have them share with you their favorite part of this accomplishment, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the method to 4-H Madness. 4-H is a positive youth development organization that teaches youth about leadership, citizenship, independence, and resiliency. How we do this is by connecting to a youth spark and using their passion while they do the heavy lifting in their own development. All 4 of these youth found their spark in the Horse Project. And like most young people, they have many interests. But 4-H was able to provide them the education and opportunities in this spark to encourage them to great success. I am extremely proud of them, and I'm so happy that they are here to speak with you today. Introduce yourself, please.
My name is Reagan Daly. I'm the team captain of the Hippology team. My absolute favorite part of this process is just seeing the years of work I've put into this pay off finally. I've been in the project for close to 12 years, maybe a little bit more. Hippology is pretty much all I've known for that time, and I've worked hard all my life to try and reach this goal. I really didn't even know that there was a national contest, and I'm glad that I could find the rest of my team to help me accomplish this goal.
My name is Amber Eggenberger, and for this accomplishment, it was nice because my family helped start the Shawnee County Horse Club project, and to be able to help carry on my family's name through this and through the national competition.
My name is Logan Rockers. When I started this contest, I was not very knowledgeable on the subject. I knew little to nothing about horses and the science behind them. So being able to kind of see my progress throughout the years and getting to nationals and doing so well there was a really satisfying thing for us to accomplish, not only for me personally, but also as a team.
My name is Mackenzie Gritman. I'm the youngest member of the team. I'm only a junior in high school, whereas everyone else is just about in college or almost in college. I've been also the youngest in the horse project, and if it wasn't for my agriculture teacher at the high school, I wouldn't even known that horse club even existed, and I wouldn't have learned all the great information and all the knowledge and just wisdom that I've learned from being on this team.
And none of our youth mentioned how much they practice. And that is a testament to Bruce Brown as well, because I would just pop into the office on a Sunday afternoon to finish something up, and they'd be there. How long were your study sessions? 2 to 3 hours on Sunday afternoons, weekly, coming up to the competition to prepare them. And they did the same process for the state competition, so they put in a lot of time. Does the commission have any questions for these young people? Or just anything?
Where do you guys go to school?
I'm a senior at Seaman High School.
Seaman?
I attend Kansas State University.
I'm also a freshman at Kansas State University.
I'm a junior in Shawnee Heights High School.
Ladies, this is a tremendous accomplishment. I am extremely proud of all the work you put into this, and a lot of dedication. I am just amazed. And do you have any comments?
Just
I'm blown away.
National achievement, and I think this will speak well, and speaks well for Shawnee County. So thank you very much for representing us well.
I'd like to thank your coach too. Thank you. And your parents.
Would it be possible to take a picture now? Because
Sure.
my dedicated youth want to get back to school, if you can believe it. Yep.
basketball.
All right. See if we can top that.
Item 2 under proclamations presentation on capital improvement projects by departments.
Good morning, Betty Greiner, Director of Administrative Services. We're here today for our mid-year review of the capital improvement projects. Our capital improvement plan for 2020 was approved on August 5th of 2019. And although it's early in the year of 2020, it is 6 months since that approval. So it is time that for these projects, that either the purchasing or the planning on these projects should have begun by now. So that's why we're going to be looking at this. This mid-year review should give the commission and the public an update on these projects. And some of the things I think that we can look at updates on is where are they in the process? Were our estimated costs accurate? As you know, we have to estimate those costs way in advance. And so sometimes those costs have changed, so we need to look at that. Did we need to change the scope of the project? If so, how and why? And have we hit a stumbling block? And if so, what is that stumbling block? I also, before we get started here, I'd like to remind the public that on our website, this information is available on our website. If you go to Audit Finance, you go to CIP right over here. There are some charts. It shows the number of projects by department. It shows there's a chart by category. Then it lists the individual information on the individual projects. You can also filter those projects. If you're looking for a specific item, you can filter it here, and only those projects will come up in the filter. And then there's also a map here that you can click on the map. Click on the map. And the map will show you the projects by location. And you can hover over that number, or that I can't remember if it's how it comes up, but you can hover over that and it will tell you what that project is and the location of it. So we will go on to the projects themselves. We will go through the projects one by one, and someone from the department will come up and give you an update on that. Please ask questions as we go through, as we're discussing the individual projects. We will look at the projects in all of the different funds, one fund at a time. And we will begin with those projects that were approved for capital outlay, excuse me, for 2018 and 2019 that were not completed by the end of the year. We will, that's what I brought up here first. That's what we will look at first. And then after that, then we will go into the projects that were approved for 2020. I will put these up on the screen and we will go through the order that they are in the screen. I have printed it out for the commissioners just because sometimes it's kind of hard to read the descriptions on the screen, so you'll have that in front of you. So we will start here with the open items from 2018 is where we will start. And the detention facility had a 2019 sport utility vehicle.
Good morning, Commissioners. Brian Cole, Shawnee County Department of Corrections. In 2018, the Board of Commissioners approved that we could buy and purchase a transport vehicle, and they gave us approximately about $80,000 to do that. We came well under budget with that. The remainder of the money, we did request to purchase a vehicle to replace our administrative vehicle that is used for training for the remainder of those funds, which was also approved. That vehicle has been purchased, has gone out. You've approved us to go out for specs. We've gone out that. We've gone in front of the commissioners to approve the purchase. The purchase is done, and we should be getting that vehicle in within the next couple weeks. And there is about, looks like $1,062 left remaining in that. But the vehicle's been purchased, and we should have that in about 2 weeks.
Great.
Thank you.
I will mention also, normally the process is once this project is completed and you see the balance of $1,062 left in that balance will generally just go back into the fund to be used for something else in the future. Now, some of these, if there's a large amount, we may ask them to talk about whether that project is done and whether those funds can be relinquished to go back into the fund as they go through these. So the next is emergency management.
Morning, Commissioners. Nelson Castile, Emergency Management Operations. On the outdoor warning siren, it is in the ground and up right now. We're still waiting on possibly some programming and also waiting to see what the bill is going to be. They ran into a lot of rock out there at Cypress Ridge and had to bring in a core driller or some fancy expensive machine out there to get that accomplished. The radio sustainment alternate was to be the last project. The 18.2 was the quote that we had back when we did this 2.5 to 3 years ago. We were going to wait and see if there was anything left to put into that from the outdoor warning and the other projects. Two of the previous projects that we had for 18 all come in significantly under budget, so it's allowed us to take that radio alternate project and expand it more than what we thought with the pricing that we had. Do you have any questions for me?
This outdoor warning.
And we worked with Parks and Rec to find that location. We also did not hook into regular commercial power as we were going to, so we had the expense of adding a solar panel onto it for this siren out at Cypress Ridge. And then when they actually started to dig the hole, they got down about 4 feet and hit solid rock, and they needed to go another 6 feet through solid rock and had to get something expensive in there to get the last 6 feet in the ground.
Nelson, this is the warning that's going to have the audio so that we would be able to send out audio messages in addition to just the sound.
Yes, sir. This is the one. It's the one that you see out there that looks like it's got 5 or 6 flying saucers on the top of it there, which are the speakers, and you can put out lightning warnings, severe thunderstorm warnings. You can even put a voice message of your own out there. We put it in that location for the Midwest Aquatic Center there, and also the golf course being 2 of the big outdoor areas out there.
Nelson, when they found the rock, did they do any surveying as to the general geographical areas of the rock, or was it just for that one project?
I do not know the answer to that question.
That might be something relevant for Parks and Recreation to know as we look at development of the family park and knowing what costs may lie underground.
We'll communicate with Director Laurent on that, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Bill Kroll, Facilities Maintenance Director. In 2018, the courthouse electrical system renovations, that was a result of the lightning strike we had on Easter Sunday the year previous that fried one of our circuit breakers to one of the 2 transformers that feeds this building. To get that repaired, we weren't sure if we'd be able to repair it or if it would have to be replaced and the whole systems would have to be replaced. We did find a contractor that was able to rebuild that particular circuit breaker. We were able to switch over to the other transformer when that was being rebuilt. The next part of that process was to see if the breakers, the other ones, were going to fail. All but one didn't, so we were able to do some rebuilding. Wasn't a worst case scenario, which the $40,000 was looking for. So that balance of $28,737.50 can be relinquished, which is great news for us because our electrical system is old in this building, but we were able to keep it going. Any questions on that one?
Bill, by not having to replace the transformer, that's where we were looking at whether or not we were going to have to create a whole new bunker outside of the courthouse
That's correct.
for a transformer. But we were able to use the original transformer for this building that was dropped into place at its construction.
Yes. So, in the future, if we ever do have a major electrical upgrade and modification, codes require that the transformers must be outdoors, in a bunker-type walled-in area that the public can't get to. And it's, when that comes, and someday it probably will, it's gonna be a real mess on the front of the building, because that'd probably be the only place we'd be able to do it. But we were able to dodge that bullet, and actually the lightning strike proved to be a blessing in disguise, because we were able to go through and get all those circuit breakers that we need to have in our electrical vault serviced. And at this point, they're all working, which is great news. And these are the main breakers. Some of them are 500 amp, 750 amp. These are big circuit breakers. So, good news for us on that. The second one, the courthouse elevator modernization, that was a ballpark number of 100,000 we threw out. We did go to RFP on that and found out we didn't budget near enough money for it. So in this year's capital budget, we've increased that funding up to $250,000. With that 100,000 that's there, another 150. The RFP for that has gone out, and we have a pre-bid meeting next week for the elevator modernization. And that's just one elevator, and that's the inmate elevator. So by the time we do all three of the other passenger elevators, we're probably looking at well over $1 million to get our elevators modernized, which is an incredible amount of money for that kind of stuff.
And Bill, we still have one of our 3 elevators for the, just general elevators is down.
It's back up and running at this point. Knock wood on that. And the expense on that has been minimal at this point. So we've got some good news. The bad news on that, we did find out that the programming on that elevator is Windows 98, which is an old operating system, to say the least. So that's right, Pat. Oh, Pat is that? Okay. 2018 capital outlay in the North Annex windows. When we were planning the HVAC replacement at the North Annex, the thought was we would probably need to get some windows in there to keep ventilation while the air conditioning would be off during the summer. Our contractor, as they did that system last year, was able to get all that work done with the air conditioning system still operating, so we have no need for the windows for the ventilation for having a non-air conditioning type situation. So those funds can be relinquished, or I believe our thought at this point would be maybe move those into space planning type funding for if we have to do anything at the North Annex with space planning.
Is there any need for the windows at the North Annex? There are no real windows for ventilation. It's
We shouldn't need them. Some of the staff would, I'm sure, love to have a window to look out and crack it and get some fresh air from time to time, but the systems as they're set up now and the new HVAC system, we do have plenty of fresh air that comes into the building and can keep fresh air pumped into the building with the new air handling systems without opening windows.
I just know every time the HVAC would go down in the summertime, we would have to shut down the entire building.
We have a new system there now. We shouldn't have to do that. So,
Sorry, Kurt, maybe next year.
any questions for these?
No, I commend you for, the $58,000 in savings there makes that extra bump on the elevator a little bit easier to swallow.
Yeah, it does. So, okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Under Sheriff Jason Mecca. The capital outlay for 2018 for the courthouse surveillance system, there are new cameras in place at this time. If you have time to stop by the security office, the officers can show you some of this system and how it operates. It's a very robust system. And as you can see from the 2018, it is at a zero balance now. So. Sure, I'll defer to Pat. He speaks the language. Thank you, Pat.
Pat O'Brien with the Information Technology Department. As mentioned, the security upgrade has been completed, and all of the items for which we contracted back in October of 2019 have been installed and are up and running. We do expect an invoice for those to be hitting the door within the next few days. We contracted for this to be completed by March 1st. We beat that date. I do want to give a shout out to two key individuals that played a major role in this. Shane Plemons is the project manager for this endeavor and did an excellent job in coordinating all the activities among all of the different people and agencies that were involved in the successful implementation of this project. We had to coordinate with all of the different offices in the courthouse, and there are a lot of them if you go through and count them all up, including the courts offices, courtrooms, administrative offices, a lot of different areas that were impacted by this project, and a lot of coordination was required, and I really want to thank Shane for that. Another fundamental player was Mark Price, who handled all of the technical details of getting the cameras installed properly and tested, and everybody trained on this. So a successful project, and I think it was due in large part to the key people that we had running that project. As I mentioned, the project has been completed for the contracted elements. I do have an agenda item on for today that we'll be going through that has 3 change items that we would like to have approved. One of them was an optional component that we're exercising the option on to install a couple of rooftop cameras. I'll get into those when I do the presentation later on in the regular agenda item. But we do have an additional $30,000 that we would need to spend beyond what we contracted for in October 24th to cover those items. And as I said, I will go through those in detail when we get to that point in the agenda.
Pat,
Yes.
of the 270 that are left unexpended, are those projects are still in process, so that's not a final amount?
In the 2020 capital outlay
Right.
for the courthouse security system, that is unplanned for. I mean, there's no projects planned to use that money currently.
This is what's remaining after the contract is paid in full. So any additional, the change orders that he's asking for that will come over will come out of that 270. So even after that, there would be about 240,000 left.
And that was my question, just
Yes.
so that as we're kind of running an internal tally,
Yes.
we have about 240 approximately out of that. Okay.
Okay, we'll now kind of work into the 2019, so we're back to facilities.
Bill Kroll, Facilities Maintenance Director. This is the item that we mentioned just a few minutes ago, the North Annex HVAC replacement. There's one item left for the contractor, Piping Contractors Incorporated, to complete before we would let the retainage go on that, but the project is complete. Everything is operational. It's a very minor issue on the punch list. Some of it's just paperwork related and giving us the final testing and balancing report for that. So we're in real good shape budget-wise on that project, and anybody that's in North Annex now would tell you, I think, that they're a lot more comfortable than they used to be. So we had some success on that project. After the retainage. And the balance, Betty is informed too, would be after the retainage is paid. So we have a balance to finish that project up with too.
Just to kind of recap before we move on, of the 151, and then if we were to take the 240 from leftover from the surveillance, and then the 58 that you had unexpended, would we have then enough then to complete the inmate elevator? So you're going to have you have 100,000 plus an additional.
Yeah.
The inmate elevator, I believe that we do have enough set aside. I guess we'll see how the bids come in on that. We do believe we will have enough money already set aside for the inmate elevator. It's the other 3 passenger elevators, the public elevators that we currently do not have anything set aside for.
But we do have not a bid, but at least a quote for that.
On the inmate?
No, the other elevator.
No, on the 3, no, we do not at all. We were just trying to, we went out for RFP on the inmate elevator. It was very very high, and so Bill talked to some different people in the field and kind of changed the scope a little bit to really get down to what needed to be changed, and took away those cosmetic elements of it. And is that saying it correctly? And so we are hoping after this, scope change, that the bids will come in lower, and we do feel like we would have enough money that we've already set aside with 2019 and 2020 to cover the inmate elevator only.
And then would we do an RFP then for the other elevators?
Yeah, and I think our thought was that we would work through the negotiation process on the inmate elevator before we put out the RFP for the others, to kind of learn from that experience on that one.
Thank you.
Just add one more thing on the passenger elevators. Is, in talking with several different elevator companies, the logistics of the passenger elevators and the inmate elevator are the same, so they would have a better idea to give us a better proposal on the passenger elevators after they get their teeth sunk into the inmate elevator a little bit. So a little research on the front end should help us out on the back end.
Thank you.
Tim Laurent, Shawnee County Parks and Recreation Department. First project up here is the Family Park Design Services. So we have spent about $4,900 of those funds to do some preliminary drawings of what could be possible at Family Park. The remainder, we have interviewed firms and selected a firm, at least pending your approval. That firm, we've gone to our professional selection services, professional services committee to review that process, and we're currently working on a contract with that vendor, and then we'll bring that up for your approval here very shortly, next couple of weeks. The artificial turf at the girls complex, that project we lumped that together in a way with the artificial turf at the multi-purpose field at Bettis. We thought we'd get our best price if we put those out at the same time and had those completed at the same time. So we're awaiting right now some engineering services for the girls complex. Once that's complete, they'll begin the process of installing the turf. Both locations should be done this spring, this fall, before the end of the year. Any questions?
Again, just kind of following up from the conversation with Nelson, make sure you share with any firm that's going to be doing services, any geotechnical issues
Right.
with the rock out at Family Park.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, we will go on now to the 2020. We'll start with the capital outlay fund and then any new debt. On the capital outlay fund, all of the items that were above $50,000 were approved on August 5th of 2019, and at that time, $100,000 was set aside for small items, small CIP items that were under the $50,000. Those were approved in December. So this list includes both of those, the large items and the small ones. And we'll go down this list as we did the other one. The first one is audit finance, so I will start. I was approved to get new monitors and a docking station. Those have already been purchased and are installed. We are using them. They are great, and especially the monitors, I think, are giving us a lot of efficiencies in not going back and forth from screen to screen. So those came in at $3,900, so we have $1,100 in that we can relinquish to the fund.
Good
morning, Commissioners. Lee Welch, Court Administrator, 3rd Judicial District in Shawnee County. We've met with both Triner HL, Jeff Lane is our representative there, and KBS Constructors, who are doing the construction and design work for the 2 courtrooms, 306 and 312. Those are 2 of our small non-jury courtrooms that we've been slowly working on trying to get all those upgraded with new technology and improving the design function of those. Due to Judge Wilson leaving us for the Supreme Court, we actually are in the middle of a judicial vacancy right now. So the 306 courtroom will be empty probably until the first part of June, which is making this project go even easier. In visiting with KBS and Triner HL, they expect a tremendous cost savings on these 2 projects because we're going to undertake the renovation of both courtrooms at the same time. Right now, we're going through the process of revising some drawings. Hopefully by next week, we'll have 3D drawings available and final plans to approve. The building permits are underway, and they're expecting to begin construction approximately April 1st. The original timeline, if we were doing the courtrooms back-to-back, was 13 to 14 weeks. With them being able to work on both courtrooms at the same time, they're expecting that to come in about 7 to 8 weeks. So we're going to see a tremendous cost savings not only on materials but also on labor. Their estimate is that we should be able to occupy both of those courtrooms by about June 1st, which should be right about the same time we have a new judge taking the bench. So, any questions?
Questions? Thank you.
You're welcome. The third item for the court was Bradley Child Support software. We did purchase 3 additional copies of Bradley Child Support for our staff attorney and law clerks. That provides everybody that's working on our domestic cases to have access to their own copy of the software.
Questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, Commissioners. Brian Cole, Shawnee County Department of Corrections. Board of County Commissioners approved the department to go out and go through a sole source vendor, I believe, to purchase approximately 100 radios. Those radios have been purchased. They have been received. They're at our current vendor being programmed, and that should take, I'm guessing, a couple weeks for us to get programmed, and we'll have the radios. I don't know right off the top of my head if there's any remaining balance. Huh? $100 left. All right. So we came right in. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
No questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Morning again, Nelson Castile, Emergency Management Operations. I'll start at the bottom here. The wide print plotter printer is what you approved on Monday to purchase, and so that PO is being sent over so they can get that. The outfitting of the EM vehicles, we're going to be coming up with the specs to do that, hopefully here by the end of March, and come forward to you all for an RFP to go out on that. The 4 vehicles are all completely different, so we can't do a one-size-fits-all. We want to make sure that we're getting the right folks doing that. On the increase the outdoor warning coverage, these are the sirens at Blue Valley. We'll be putting in. They are looking at the coverage map to see where we want to put them, and then after that, we'll be coming back for permission to purchase those with Blue Valley's projects and them ramping up for the other season. It may be approximately a month and a half before you see anything on that, but we are working with them to get it ironed out.
Questions? Thank you.
Hello again. The courthouse building control system upgrades and replacement. The final touches of the RFP that's already been approved should be complete this time next week, and we can get that RFP out. and get those building control systems looked at and get some pricing back. Don't really know at this point. One of the options I'd like to pursue, and I'm getting that into the specifications, is any ability that we might have to eliminate pneumatic controls left in the building and go all electronic. We still have air compressors pumping away and people with hissing sounds coming from their office walls and all that kind of stuff. So if we can get all digital, that would be ideal for us. And the second item, the courthouse corrections elevator modernization, we've already discussed. So answer any questions you might have.
Thank you.
Okay.
Pat O'Blinder, Information Technology again. I'm taking care of the network distribution switch replacement item. This is a $50,000 allocation for network distribution switches. These are the devices that tie together all of the physical connections for computers and phones in buildings throughout the county for network connectivity. We have literally dozens of these things in each building. They do come up for replacement and renewal every several years. So they're distributed throughout a lot of different locations and will be replaced as needed. We do expect to have these purchased by May 1st of 2020 and then installed by September of this year. We probably will spend all of the $50,000 that's allocated to do that. We expect to purchase those in small increments. We typically purchase them as refurbished units so that we don't have to pay full price for them. We've had very good success with doing that over the last 15 to 20 years, and we expect to continue doing it that way. We'll work with the Audit Finance Office in making those purchases to ensure that we follow appropriate purchasing procedures. But that is where we're at and where we expect to be. Any questions on those?
Commissioners? Thank you.
Let's see, on the next one, the Nutanix Hyperconverged Infrastructure Platform Expansion. This is the virtualization platform that was purchased early January of this year with funding from multiple sources. We had a project budget that was put together from 2019 funds, excuse me, from IT and Sheriff's Office. And then in 2020, we purchased that along with an allocation of $150,000 from capital outlay. That purchase has been completed, an invoice has been received, and I believe we've got it in for payment. The equipment still remains to be installed. We're scheduling with the vendor to get that installed, and there's a little bit more we'll have to pay on maintenance. But once we get that completed here in March, that will be the end of that project and will be completed. If you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
How are you doing budget-wise on that line?
We came in at exactly what was allocated for the project, which was 320, oops, got so many projects on here, 474,242. Let's see, IT fleet replacements. In 2019, the IT department got on board with what Parks and Recreation started with leasing of vehicles, and we've gone ahead and committed to using that mechanism to do our vehicle fleet replacements and maintenance. And as a consequence, this $22,000 that's allocated for 2020 can be reused for other purposes. Any questions on that one? And then the final item is the IT Fiber Fusion Splicer. This is a device that's capable of melting and sticking together the ends of fibers as opposed to just breaking the ends and then pushing them together to create optical connections for fiber for data communications. Creates a much better connection, which is in line with what we have to do as we increase the bandwidth of signals going across these fibers that we're putting into place. We plan to create an RFQ, a request for quotations, and we'd like to get that on the BOCC agenda in the March timeframe with a purchase relatively soon after that. And we expect that this will come in relatively close to the full $18,000. So that's where we're at on that one. Any questions?
No questions.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Hello again, Tim Laurent, Shawnee County Parks and Rec. I'll start with the Family Park project. We're awaiting completion of the master plan before we're able to move forward with that project. I did fail to mention that when I was up here earlier talking about Family Park, that we think we're going to come in about $15,000 less than what we had budgeted, so that's a good sign. Any questions about Family Park before I move on? So Deer Creek Trail Grant Project. I'm just going to run down a little list here just to kind of get a lengthy process with a lot of moving parts. So we did the pre-design and field check portions have been complete. Appraisal began in June of 2019. It's one of the things that has drawn this process out a bit is that our appraiser canceled his contract, and so we had to locate and hire a new appraiser, and so that took some time. Acquisition phase began in January of 2019. We believe we have tentative agreements in place with 3 of the property owners, so we're making progress there. The utility permit and relocation requests have been submitted. Once the acquisition is completed, and we'll submit that to KDOT, and then at that point they'll let the project. Right now on their schedule, they have it penciled in for September, which I think the last time we were here, we were talking about March. What I'm told is that if we get our part done and submitted, they may be able to move that timeline up, but I think ultimately that'll be their decision. So any questions about Deer Creek?
I might just say that KDOT bids these projects out.
Correct.
We don't, it's kind of out of our hands. So.
Correct.
I do have a question, and this is more for Betty or possibly even Jim. On the $10 million that we allocated for new debt in 2020, we are not restricted to Family Park only for the $9,503,500, but it is restricted to Parks and Recreation.
We would have to look at how the debt, how the resolution is written and what scope there is on that. I believe it was broad enough that it was Parks and Recreation, but I would have to go back and look. It has to be within the scope of what was approved. Now, that doesn't mean that we could not come back and adjust that, correct, Jim? But however we set the scope for that debt is how it would have to be spent.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jim Krause, Shawnee County Councilor. My recollection when that resolution was brought before the Commission, I believe in August of last year, 2 items were discussed, Family Park and the Deer Creek Trail Project. Those are the 2 items that I recall being discussed when that bonding issue was brought up. To go beyond that, I think we would need to consult with our bond counsel, Bob Perry, who drafted those documents in terms of what he believes the outer limits of the scope of that might be.
And we haven't taken out that debt or incurred that debt at this point.
No, we have not. All you have authorized us to work towards issuing it, but we have not taken any further steps. In fact, we don't even know at this point an amount. What you approved was up to $10 million. That does not mean we have to issue the whole $10 million, and there's not a time frame that it has to be issued by.
And so as we work through the Family Park Master Plan, as those options or phases become available to us, we may look at a lesser amount, or we may look at other projects. Is that ultimately where you're looking, Tim?
Yeah, I believe that's true. I think as we go through the process, hopefully what transpires is that we hear from folks that live in this community on what they want to see in the park, and you create a plan. And in my mind, it could be a long-range plan. So you could see phases where we do a certain amount this year and then work to complete the park in future years. So at this point, I think really it's a blank canvas.
All right. With this master plan, we'll have some rough numbers to go with.
Absolutely.
The various
Yeah, there'll be
components of the park.
estimates,
So
but you're
we
right, they'll be
pick
rough.
and choose what we'd like to do as we phase it in.
Yes.
I know that there's a number of projects on the Parks and Recreation horizon, or opportunities on the Parks and Rec horizon, and so just making sure we keep our options available to us. All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll move on to the floating playground at Adventure Cove. So We had been allotted $150,000. The playground that we chose came in at $75,000. Most of that playground, if not all of it, has been delivered, hasn't been paid for yet. We will have that playground up and running by Memorial Day of this year. It'll be open for swimming at the Cove, so we're excited about that. Because the price was less, you allowed us to add a dredging project there, and so that's been awarded, and we're waiting for the contractor to go ahead and do that process, but it'll be done as well before the Cove opens. Even with those two projects, I think we're still around $45,000 less than what we were allotted, so that's good. Next project is the Hillcrest Gymnasium painting. So as you know, we're involved in a larger Hillcrest renovation project, and we are waiting until that project mainly focuses on the front entrance of the building and the lobby and a couple of the rooms right there in the front, the computer lab and sort of a multi-purpose room. So we want to wait until that work gets somewhat completed because they're putting new windows and doors into the gym. And so we don't want to go do any painting or much work in the gym until that's complete. So that's not really part of this project, but just so you know, we're currently working to get a signed maximum price agreement with our vendor because it's a design build project for Hillcrest. And once we have that back, we'll be back up here at the commission asking to move forward, and hopefully we'll get moving pretty quickly on that project. So, any questions?
Just on, Mr. Chairman, on the Hillcrest, we encountered some issues with the renovations to the front entrance of Hillcrest.
Yes.
That there was maybe some things that were not known at the time of the start of the project. Where do we stand on that project in cost-wise?
On the numbers that the numbers that I believe are the final numbers. We've gone back and forth on this for several months now. We're looking at, I don't have the numbers in front of me, so these may not be spot on, but I believe we're looking at about $440,000 to do the renovation as planned, what we had decided to do. And that's just, I think we had 417,000 set aside or something like that, so we're pretty close, but we're a little over. And then what you're talking about is the split-faced flute brick on the front of the building where we're putting the new entrance, and really across the entire front of Hillcrest has been compromised. So there's water has gotten behind that brick and caused it to separate. Honestly, the worst area is right where we're putting the new entrance. So anyway, new guttering to make sure this doesn't happen again, and replacing that brick facade that's been compromised would add about, I want to say it's about $140,000, $103,000 to the price tag. And we will be asking to do that when we come up before the board, so, for the commission.
I think it's just important that we make sure that the public knows some of the unanticipated expenses and that we're still moving forward with Hillcrest.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kurt Niehaus, Public Works Director. Got 3 items on the list. The dump truck refresh, there were 2 trucks. One was a traditional dump truck with the sander and snowplow, and the second one was the load lift and hook load and lift type truck. You approved that purchase based on the preferred low bid, and so we're in the process of moving through the purchasing process. I'm guessing those trucks will be delivered late this year. And so those were, that low bid was approved on February 13th. And then on the walk-behind concrete saw and the router and heat lamps for crack sealing, those have not been purchased yet. The funds have only been available for about 2 months. We will get those purchased before we need them later this spring. Questions? Thank you.
Good morning again, Commissioners. Under Sheriff Jay Semeka. In regards to the courthouse surveillance system, I believe when we covered 2018 and 19, Pat did a fine job in talking about 2020. Next is the sheriff fleet refresh. The $250,000 approved went towards 8 Dodge Durango police package vehicles. Those have been ordered through Davis Moore, Inc. on a state contract. We're looking to receive those first part of second quarter, so sometime early April, mid-April. There is a remaining balance on that. It came in at $257,717.44, which the $7,717.44 we will cover with federal forfeiture funds. The second item on here is the soft code for process documentation management. That is a trusted vendor through New World Technology, Tyler Technologies. They will perform that. They have been contacted. That is in the works. We're looking at implementation also first part of second quarter, sometime in April. The price tag on that was just over $130,000. It was $131,946. So the $1,946 will be paid out that balance through federal forfeiture as well. And do you have any questions? Okay. Thank you.
Okay, that completes going through all the projects for the capital outlay and any new debt. Do you have any questions on any of these before we move on? Okay. We'll move on to the Parks and Rec funds. We have the Parks and Rec 3R fund and then their building maintenance fund.
Hello again, Tim Laurent. So this road project, Southeast 45th Street, as Public Works goes in and reworks that section of the road, we chipped in $200,000 so that they could rework that section of trail that runs along that road. I know you remember that's we've had some issues there. It's a dangerous area. So once they're complete, we'll have a much better setup and eliminate that sharp decline or incline, depending on which way you're going. Shop consolidation design services. We have not made any progress on that, and I think we've had a lot of discussions about the best way to go and what the possibilities are, but a lot of this, as you know, centers around our desire to move our fleet shop off of Curtis Street so that we can make way for any possible riverfront development that might happen. That area is owned by the city. We don't own that property. So like I said, we've got a lot of ideas. We've had a lot of discussions, but we have not moved forward with any sort of design at this point. Any questions on that? Park system signage. 15 park signs have been replaced across Topeka and Shawnee County. I hope you've seen some of them. I think they look amazing. We have 22 more scheduled to be completed this year. Probably would have been done already, but the signposts are on back order. They are supposed to be available in March, so we hope to get those here this month. And then we can move forward with new signs, 22 new signs, and also, in addition to that, new signage around the shelters at Lake Shawnee. So just so you know, each park sign costs approximately $1,500, and that doesn't include staff time to install and the concrete pads that we are putting down as part of the process. Any questions there? Number 4, restroom renovations. We are currently working to replace exterior doors and stall dividers at the Westlake shelter. The Austin shelter, we're replacing stolen and vandalized plumbing there. So we'll hopefully have those open soon, which they haven't been open for some time. And then we're, as sort of a pilot program, we are installing automatic door locks at Santa Fe and Oakland shelters. Because as you know or may not know, sometimes these restrooms don't get open unless we have special events. But we'd like to make these available to anybody when they're in the park. And so we're going to see how it goes with these 2 locations, and then hopefully expand out in the future.
Jim, can you expand on that just for a moment?
Sure.
Is it going to be a key code lock? Is it going to be?
No, they would just be set up so that they would unlock at a certain time in the morning, whatever we programmed. They would lock at night. Now, if someone was in there, they could get out. There's a push bar, so no one will be locked in. But there will also be no motivation for them to leave if they're locked in. So, those are the things we want to see how it goes. What do we encounter? Do we end up with a lot more vandalism? Do we have more problems because of this? But we want to try to balance that need, because if you're in the park and you're there with your family and you need to use the restroom and you go to a locked door, that's frustrating. That shouldn't be that way. So we're going to try this, like I said, as a pilot at a couple of locations and just see how it goes. That's at least the intent. Milfoil. So we have a contractor that we've been here, and that was approved in November of last year. They will be in. This came in at a cost of $103,800, so slightly over what was budgeted. And they will begin the application sometime in March. So it'll be completed by the end of the month. Accessible field resurfacing. We're waiting on a signed contract from our vendor. Once complete, we will bring this to the BCC, and we hope to have this complete by late spring or early summer of this year. And then last, roof repair and replacement. We are working to get bids to replace the roofs at Little Oakland and Ripley Shelter, and then a portion of the Oakland Community Center. Again, we hope to have all of those projects completed this year, and this should exhaust the entire $75,000 that was allotted. So,
Excuse me, it was Little Oakland and what was it?
Little Oakland and Ripley Shelters, and then a portion of the Oakland Community Center, the main portion, I believe, the biggest section of roof there. Any questions? All right.
Okay, we'll move on to the Public Works funds. This one is a little harder to see because there are 4 funds involved, which is one of the reasons I thought you really needed it printed out for you.
Good morning again, Commissioners. Courtney House, Director of Public Works. We'll try to make our way through this. Items 4 and 5 will be a combined project. This is a semi-urban area. We're moving towards field check. We've got a consultant on board. We do anticipate planning for a mid to late 2020 letting. Unfortunately, the total budget for the project, total budget, not just construction, will likely approach $1.3 million. And the reason for that is because of hydraulics. In order to get a reasonable overtopping interval on Green Hills Road and Northwest 39th, we've had to increase the size of these structures. So the overall project cost has increased. Items 6, 7, and 8, these are culverts on Southeast Barrington Road. The $384,000 that you see there on item 6 is a typo. That should be $70,000 because what we had anticipated in 2020 was design costs only. Consultant work is ongoing. We have not field checked that project yet. We anticipate a late 2021 letting to avoid any detour conflicts with our Southeast 45th Street project. Item number 16, Southeast 69th over tributary to Lynn Creek. As you know, we had a letting on February 5th. The bids were rejected due to the low bid being greater than 110% of the engineer's estimate. A second bid letting will occur on February 28th, and we're confident or hopeful that the bids will come in line. We have received a bad piece of news concerning that project. The contractor that bid the first time, that was the low bid, they will not bid this second time. So that is bad news. Glick Road over Ensign Creek. The RFQ closed February 21st, 2020. We are in the process of selecting a design consultant through the Professional Services Committee. Item 18, Bridge Northwest Wilson Road over tributary to Half Day Creek. Let's see here. We've got an approved consultant, was approved by the commission on February 24th. We anticipate a 2020 letting, so that's right on schedule. Item 19, Laurel Road over Tecumseh Creek. We're going to delay that project for 1 year. We have the money for design, but we're concerned about having the construction money in 2021. So we're going to delay the design of that project for 1 year. And I do want to remind everyone that this 5-year CIP, a lot of these numbers are generated before we have any other information. So I don't want you to think that this is a real a failure of the Public Works Department. The CIP is strictly a planning document. Number 30, traffic signal upgrade. As you know, that's a joint KDOT Shawnee County project. Funds are split, costs are split 90-10. On February 20th, the BCC approved a consultant design contract. We're still waiting for KDOT to provide us with a city-state agreement that we can bring to the commission, and we're moving forward to a September 2020 KDOT letting.
Kurt, these are the lights on South Topeka Boulevard.
Correct.
As we get close to Forbes before we get to Gary Ormsby. Is that right?
Well, one will take place at the intersection with Gary Ormsby, one at University Boulevard, and one at 57.
Okay.
Yeah, so that'll be timely considering the Walmart news that we've had recently. Dump truck refresh, I talked about that. 200,000 of those funds was funded through capital outlay. The remaining will be funded through our normal special equipment fund. And rather than $95,682, we had hoped to get $300,000 from capital funds for the payment of those dump trucks. We kindly received $200,000, so the 95 turned into 195. 37, 42, and 43, message board, the traffic control truck and the supervisor's truck. You approved my request to reject those bids. We're in the process of working with Audit Finance on revised equipment specifications, and we've increased the number of vendors that we've notified. So hopefully before the end of March, we'll have those bids approved. And then I think the final item is the hook lift and load asphalt box. That was lumped in with the two dump trucks. That has been approved, and we're in the process of going through the purchasing process. I think that completes all of my items. Thank you. Questions? Nope. Thank you.
Okay, well, our next fund is the Land Records Fund. Steve Bauman was not able to be here today because he is at continuing education. So I offered to present this for him. This was $60,000 for vehicle replacement. As you know, he has gotten on board with the leasing program also. So this amount was for purchase. So the amount will be less than this amount, and then any remaining funds will remain in the Land Records Fund for other purposes in the future. Okay, the next one is Solid Waste Fund.
Good morning, Commissioners. Bill Sutton, Solid Waste. I had 4 items on the project list. All of them pertain to fleet refresh. This was approved late in January, and it went out for bid. The bids closed. The last of the bids closed on March 3rd. So that is where we're at in the process, and obviously we'll come back before the commission to seek permission for those. So, any questions?
that is our last fund to go through, but this is our first year to do this, our first year for the formal CIP and the first year for this review. So I would like to ask you as commissioners if you have things that you would like to change in the way we did this review, if you have suggestions.
I think it went real well. It was very helpful. Good to get the update.
Bill, this was your idea and your baby, so.
Well, I think it's a good planning tool. I like the baby.
Oh, down here. Oh, yeah, I kept signing it.
All right. All right. What's our next item?
Item 3, consent agenda.
I'll move that we approve the consent agenda. Second. Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Item 4, new business A, County Clerk number 1, consider all voucher payments.
Commissioners, this morning we have vouchers that total $1,497,505.94. Some of the highlights out of the voucher report: the largest amount is our holding accounts with the state of Kansas, which was $621,297.37. Under debt service, we also had with the sewer districts, the Kansas State Treasurer for $659,827.37. That's for GO bond payments. Under the capers, which is our general expenses, our pooled cash rather, of $332,602.47. And then under the federal forfeiture, we have our purchase of guns for the sheriff of $23,600. Under the local health center, Ed Bozar Chevrolet for $23,475 for the 2020 Chevrolet Equinox. Also under the sheriff is the Basinger uniforms and equipment for $50,690.58 for ballistic vests. And then finally, under the solid waste and recycling, Shawnee Mission Ford for $29,358 for a supervisor truck. I do not have any questions regarding the vouchers, and would move for their approval.
Second. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Item A2, consider correction orders.
I would move that we approve the correction orders.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Item B, Public Works number 1, consider awarding bid to Bettis Asphalt for up to 6,000 tons of BM-2A hot mixed asphalt at a cost of $44.85 a ton, and as a contingency, if Bettis Asphalt cannot supply the HMA when needed, request to obtain from Ham Inc. of Perry at a cost of $46 a ton with funding from various accounts dependent upon the location for use.
Good morning again, Commissioners. Kurt Niehaus, Director of Public Works. We have 7,000 tons of asphalt left over from last year. We completed all of our projects for last year, but we had a large quantity. So to augment that 7,000 tons, we're going to need another 6,000 tons for this year. And with the help of Audit Finance, we solicited bids. 2 bids were received, and the low and preferred bid, the low and best bid, was provided by Bettis Asphalt and Construction of Topeka. And normally we would be happy with that. That would be great. Unfortunately, in the past, it's only occurred once that I know of, due late in the year when the asphalt suppliers are working hard to finish all their projects that they've committed to. Sometimes we kind of get left out. We're maybe a small fish in the pond. And so because of that, our Bettis may not be able to supply asphalt to us. So we want to keep our options open, and if that is the case, we would like to get asphalt from the second low bid, the second bid, which was Hams Incorporated of Perry, Kansas. And with that, I'll take your questions.
Sure, thank you. Kurt, these are specifically for Grove and Monmouth Township roads.
They're for everything in Shawnee County. They're for Shawnee County's roads. They're for anything that would be associated with a bridge project that maintenance would work on. They're associated with anything that we would do on county roads. And then also, it would cover Monmouth and Grove Township work that we did on their paved roads.
Okay, but this is not for a specific project such as the 45th Street or 29th
No, sir.
Street?
No, sir. This is maintenance-related work, not let projects.
All right.
Mhm.
So you said we have 7,000 tons left over from last year?
Yeah.
That's, obviously more than double what we're asking for this year. Is there a reason why we had so much?
Well, traditionally, we have asked for quantities in that high amount. And I was a little concerned because I think it's important for the county to be honest with our partners. And rarely did we use 20,000 tons of asphalt. And I think what was happening is the contractor or the suppliers were becoming aware of that history, and they were adjusting their bids accordingly. And I felt like we should be more honest with our suppliers, and we should therefore be more honest with the quantity that we think we're going to buy in a particular year. So again, we had 7,000 left over from last year. We only need 13,000 this year, so the remainder was the 6,000 in which we got bids on.
Okay, if I may. Just out of curiosity, do you know what the price we paid for that
Last year?
amount last year was?
It was slightly higher than what we got this year's for. I could say, I could tell, I think it was Bettis last year also. I could tell Bettis, no, we don't want to continue. We want to stop this. We'll bid what we need for next year. But the trend was asphalt was going up in price. So I thought it was the county's best interest that we accept the price from last year and move that forward to 2020. Well, to our advantage, price went down slightly. That's hard to anticipate.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'll move for approval.
I'll second. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Item B2, consider authorization and execution of contract C73-2020 with Kaiser Compressors, Inc., sole source purchase of two low blower blocks and miscellaneous other parts for the rehabilitation of 2 blower packs at the Sherwood Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant at a cost of $26,666.60, with funding 100% user fees.
Courtney House, Director of Public Works. The Sherwood Treatment Plant has 7 blowers. These blowers are used to inject oxygen into the waste stream. And the reason we do that is because the little critters, the bacteria that break the waste down, just like you and I, they need oxygen. So that's what these blowers do. They oxygenize the water, and then they also provide turbulence, or they agitate the water. The worst thing that you can have is sedentary water, because then the oxygen is depleted from that body of water, and then you get in trouble. So these blower packs are important to the overall treatment process. Right now, cool weather, the treatment plant can work on 5 blowers. But when it heats up, weather outside heats up, and the temperature increases, the oxygen demand increases, and we will need at some point these 2 additional blowers. So I'm asking that we approve the sole source request to fix these 2 blowers, and we get this done. If you approve that, we can get this done before the warm weather arrives in Kansas.
Questions? I'll move for approval.
I'll second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
Thank you.
Next item.
Item C, corrections. Number 1, consider approval of request to add Wi-Fi capabilities at Department of Corrections with 24 access points at a cost of approximately $29,000 with funding from the inmate fund account.
Good morning, Commissioners. Eve Kendall, Department of Corrections. Several years ago, one of our contracted providers put Wi-Fi access points into our facility for their work. We were able to kind of piggyback off of that for a while. Their IT department has decided it's in their best interest that they have sole source on that they'd like us to get off of it. Our programming, our adult and juvenile programming has relied on that, so now we need to create our own. You can talk to our IT people for all the technical stuff, because I don't know that. I just know that we need to somehow provide Wi-Fi so we can have our adult and juvenile programming. Some of it's behavior management stuff. We have volunteers that come in that, and agencies that come in that use the Wi-Fi while they're providing programs for our population. All this would be coming out of the inmate account fund, which is what they raise through when they're purchasing their commissary and everything. That source goes back into an own account that goes towards anything that we use for them, solely for them. This would come out of that, so it would be no budgeted funds.
Talk to us just a moment about, it's our contractor that has installed Wi-Fi into our building, but now they don't want us to use it.
Part of the issue is it's our medical contractor, and there's some, and I think it's, people getting into their stuff, but I'll let the IT guy tell you that.
I mean, if it's an issue of security.
So it is an issue of security, and at the point we're at, even if they weren't saying we need to get off of that Wi-Fi, from talking with Brandy Biltoff of the jail, Mark Price, Shawnee County IT, from talking with Brandy Biltoff, due to security issues and just separation of the systems, we were talking about doing something like this anyway, to have a Horizon Medical Wi-Fi and then a DOC Wi-Fi. There's many reasons for the security aspect of not mixing the medical with corrections. It will allow corrections to expand on what they're doing with that Wi-Fi, because we can give them holes into our network or access into the network that we would not want to allow an outside vendor to have access to. So this is why Horizon's pushing for it now. In 6 months, we probably would have been pushing for it from the IT side to expand what the DOC can do with the Wi-Fi in the building. It is a complete separate network, it's a separate segment of our network right now, so they cannot get to the secure parts of the network. What we're looking to do is put in a new one where we can, if needed, allow that access into our network.
What about all the Securus technology tablets that the inmates have access to? Are they using a separate cellular signal, or are they using the Wi-Fi as well?
I believe they use they have actually their own network in the building. So it's not even running through the county at all. It's an independent provider, independent system throughout the county, throughout the jail.
Is this a typical cost for adding Wi-Fi to the facility, or is there special reasons?
Actually, it's pretty much standard access point costs for enterprise. We've already got the wiring in place, and we've got the access controllers. They're a little more expensive than what you'd go put in at home, because it allows us to treat it as one big network. Instead of having an access point here and an access point there, as they travel through the jail, it will just see it as one big network and not require a dropping and picking back up the access points. The number is a little higher than what you have to do most places because of the structure of the building. Wi-Fi does not travel real well through concrete and metal, so we've pretty much anywhere you think you might have or want Wi-Fi, we've got to put an access point in. And even with the number of access points they have, there still are dead spots, because you walk outside of a mod into the hallway and you might not have access because of the construction.
I'll move that we approve.
I'll second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
Thank you.
Next item.
Item D, Information Technology. Number 1, consider authorization and execution of the following change orders with American Digital Security for the courthouse security camera upgrade project at a cost not to exceed $30,000 from the project fund. A, Contract C74-2020 for purchase and installation of 2 rooftop cameras, including lift equipment rentals. B, Contract C75-2020 for 3 additional hallway cameras. And C, Contract C76-2020 for purchase and installation of 20 additional panic buttons.
Good morning, Commissioners. Pat Oblander again with the Information Technology Department. As mentioned earlier, this is a 3 change orders that are being added to the security camera project. The first one is a purchase and installation of 2 rooftop cameras, including lift equipment. These were an item that was quoted to us by American Digital Security as an option that would be in addition to what we contracted for last year, late last year. The budget came in with enough money left over to purchase these additional cameras. So we've gone ahead and gotten quotes for them. We've also would like to install these 2 cameras in the locations on top of the City Hall and the city parking garage so that we could get views towards the courthouse for our security folks here in the courthouse to have those additional views if they needed to have them. A memorandum of understanding has been set up with the City of Topeka. That was approved a few meetings back. So everything is in place to get those. We're now asking for permission to go ahead with the purchase of those 2 cameras. Those 2 cameras are basically they just need a space to sit. They'll be self-powered. They'll have photovoltaic cells that will provide power for them. They do not need to be connected in any way, shape, or form for electricity or data at the places that they'll be set. But the City of Topeka has agreed that it's okay with them to let us place our cameras there and have those views back towards our courthouse. So that is for the first change order that we'd like to have approved. The second one is for 3 additional hallway cameras. There is a corridor or a path between the Sally Port for prisoner transport between the courthouse and the Department of Corrections, where inmates are transported from the Sally Port up to the courtrooms for hearings. And there's a path from that Sally Port up to the inmate elevator that has a number of twists and turns. And it also has a couple of wall partitions that were put in subsequently to the floor plans being drawn. The floor plans that we were using for camera placements did not show all of the partitions, and so a couple of spots were missed, and we need to install 3 additional hallway cameras to cover those areas. The final item is we discovered that there were 20 additional panic alarm buttons that we missed on the first inventory of where all of the panic buttons were installed throughout the courthouse. We do want to get those covered, so based on the pricing that was afforded to us during the project, we've got those coming in at about $3,394. For the 3 change orders in total, we expect the price to be $28,518.53. There's also an approximate $2,000 that we need to add to that for lift fees to get the 2 cameras into the rooftop locations at the City of Topeka building and the parking garage. We expect to come in under $30,000 for the total. The bulk of this would be paid for out of the project budget that was allocated in 2018 and 19, with approximately $10,000 being required from the 2020 allocation that's in capital outlay being put towards the completion of these 3 change orders. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
We do own this system then, when it's all finished, or does it belong to American Digital
No,
Security?
it belongs to Shawnee County. It's Shawnee County owned and maintained, and we manage it and we administer it, and it's our system.
I move to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner May, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Okay.
Item E, Parks and Rec. Number 1, consider approval of request to advertise and fill the following positions and to fill any position that becomes vacant as a result of filling these positions. A, purchasing specialist at a salary including benefits of $47,825.88. B, facility supervisor at a salary including benefits of $59,447.85. And C, horticulturist at a salary including benefits of $55,991.32.
Morning, Commissioners. Olivia Mayer, Parks and Recreation. Our request is to fill 3 vacant positions, one being due to a retirement, one resignation, and one that has just recently come up for another vacancy. I'd like to answer any questions you might have.
Questions?
Move for approval.
I'll second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item E2, consider authorization and execution of contract C77-2020 Memorandum of Understanding with Silver Supper and Silverbacks, Inc. for the administration of the Silver Supper program to youth at Central Park, Garfield, and Hillcrest Community Centers with indirect costs paid by the Park Services operating budget.
Good morning, Commissioners. Susan Fowler-Hensler, Parks and Recreation. The Memorandum of Understanding with Silverbacks is a continuation of a program that has been going on for a few years now at these 3 community centers. After school, our gyms are open in the centers, free to the youth to come in and play, run off some energy. We also have the computer labs for homework and a fun area in the lobby where they can play games. So having Silverbacks come in and provide supper for Monday through Thursdays to the youth is just a very big bonus. Some of these kids, that's their last meal after school lunch till they come back for breakfast. So it is something that is very much needed at all 3 of these locations. In 2019, Silverbacks at these 3 locations served nearly 14,000 meals to the kids. So these volunteers with the nonprofit are just big-hearted community members that really have a love for the youth, and I hope you'll approve this today.
Any questions?
It's great service for the community, so I'd move for approval.
I'll second that. Motion been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thanks, Sue. Next item.
Item E3, consider approval of request to award bid to Americrete, Inc. for the installation of a new 6-inch concrete parking lot per design in Robin Hood Park at a cost of $69,050, utilizing excess reserve funds, and authorization and execution of contract C78-2020 for same.
Good morning, Commissioners. John Boyd, Parks and Recreation. We are requesting your approval of this contract to construct a parking lot in the Robinson Family Park. This is actually part of our agreement with the Robinson family when they donated the property to us, that we would develop that for access to the future trails and the natural areas. This is actually part of the reserve fund projects that was submitted in September of 18, and we're just continuing on with more projects as we go along. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Is this gonna be just at the end of the street?
Yes, it develops the end of the street into the park property, yes.
Any questions? No. I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Thanks, John.
Item E4, consider approval of request to award the, yeah, that's right. Yeah, thought I was C double there. Or the installation of a new 6-inch concrete parking lot design in Clarion Woods Park at a cost of $73,550, utilizing excess reserve funds, and authorization and execution of contract C79-2020 for same.
Good morning again, Commissioners. John Boyd, Parks and Recreation. This is a similar project to what's going on at Robinson. We have had additional discussions after the public meeting at Clarion Woods. There was no large outcry on the parking lots for construction at Clarion Woods.
John, the initial plan that I saw called for moving the parking lot over. Is that still the case? And if so, what happens with the old lot?
As part of the construction of the new parking lot, let me back up. Excuse me. The old parking lot is actually in the right-of-way for the city of Topeka's road, potential future road. So we're just being proactive at this point in time and removing that parking lot and bringing it down so that it actually matches up with codes and everything like that. The old parking lot, as part of the contract, will be removed and returned to dirt and seed grass.
How many stalls are we gonna pick up there?
At this time, the way it's designed now, I believe it was 19.
19.
I move to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Mays, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Next item.
Item E5, consider authorization and execution of the following entertainment and food service agreements for the upcoming Old Prairie Town 2020 Tulip Time and Tulips at Twilight Uncorked events with funding from the Parks for All Foundation. A, Contract C 80-2820, Baking Traditions with compensation of $250 per request. B, Contract C 81-2020, Greg Fox with compensation of $150 per set. Contract C 82-2020, Julie's Coffee and Bistro with compensation of $250 per request. D, Contract C 83-2020, Melissa Kimball with compensation of $150 per set. E, Contract C 84-2020, Jasper Shrake with compensation of $250 per set. F, Contract C 85-2020, Topeka Blues Society with compensation of $150 per set. And G, Contract C 86-2020, Craig Trennan with compensation of $400 per set.
Good morning, Commissioners. John Bell, Recreation Program Supervisor, Old Prairie Town. We are seeking approval for the attached contracts for Tulips at Twilight and Tulips at Twilight Uncorked. Tulips at Twilight Uncorked is our new wine tasting event. It will take place April 9th from 6:30 to 8:30. It will feature local wineries in Northeast Kansas, and then we'll have hors d'oeuvres and live music. And then Tulips at Twilight will run from April 10th through continuously until April 26th from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. each night, and we will have live music and entertainment during that time frame as well. Tickets for Tulips at Twilight Uncorked are on sale now. There is a $50 per person fee, and tickets are required, or pre-tickets are required in advance for that. And tickets are on sale at Old Prairie Town's Mulvane General Store, and then the admin annex that's part of Hillcrest Community Center. I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Good event. I'm glad to see expanding it a little bit here with other events. The what do you call it? The wine.
Uncorked.
Yeah, uncorked.
Yeah, that'll be a nice addition to this event, and I think it'll be very successful. So, good luck.
Thank you.
I'll move that we approve.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Thank you, John. Next.
Item F, County Councilor number 1, consider approval of resolution number 2020-14, authorizing to institute judicial tax foreclosure proceedings against various tracts of land.
Good morning again, Commissioners. Jim Crow, excuse me, Shawnee County Councilor, seeking your authorization to initiate our next tax foreclosure action. If approved, we'll file that action on Monday and proceed through about a 6 to 8 month process from the time to serve all of the individuals that are required to be served notice under the law and to obtain judgment and then to ultimately hold the sale. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
I'll move that we approve.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
Thank you.
Next item.
Item 5, Administrative Communications.
Okay, at this time, we allow department heads or anyone from the public to discuss any topic.
Tim Laurent, Shawnee County Parks and Recreation. I just wanted to briefly mention that we recently had our state conference, our Kansas Recreation and Parks Association conference in Topeka. It was the largest conference they've ever had in the history of the organization. I think we had over 450 people in attendance. I wanted to recognize a couple of people. One, I want to recognize Olivia Mayer. Olivia was sworn in as president of the organization, so she'll be president for this year. And you know, the elections took place a while back, but it was a statewide election of her from her peers, and so we're obviously proud of her, and I know she'll do an amazing job. And I also wanted to mention again, I was up here before, that Commissioner Cook won the Distinguished Elected Official Award at that conference as well. So we were very well represented. So thank you.
Courtney House, Director of Public Works. I would like to introduce our new weed director, John Landon. He comes to us from Douglas County. He was the noxious weed director in Douglas County for 11 years. So I just really welcome him on board, and I think he'll be a great addition to the county.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for being here. I'm excited to be part of the team. Looking forward to what my knowledge and experience can bring to Shawnee County, and looking forward to moving forward.
Well, we're excited to have you on board.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt.
As I rise, our ancestors look back on. I have been coming to this body for over decades. And the funny thing is, this morning when I got here, Mr. Cook came out. He was all dressed up, looking like Martin Luther King with his black hat and his black coat. He says to me, Sonny, we handled it. We got it. I made your presentation. Then later on, my good friend Doug Mays' son came out, and welcome aboard, and said he would work with me on this. But I wanted to give some background information. Back in 1976, Operation USA Party, I don't know if you ever heard of that, but it was a bicentennial program. And at the time, it was a question whether blacks were going to participate. I spoke out on it. CCBC spoke out on it. CCBC, by the way, is the coordinating committee of the black community. It was started by Charles Scott and others. I worked there. My job was to ascertain the needs of the black community. That's how Operation USA Party came about. I spoke to Jack Alexander about it. I spoke to then State Treasurer Joan Finney. And I spoke to Jane. I don't see her here. She said she was retiring.
Not yet.
You know, I'm not the smartest person in the toolbox, and I'm not that articulate, but I can always count on Jane to kind of break everything down for me. While I'm here, I want to acknowledge Black Topeka, because they're on the move, and I think it's really going to make the city better. Curtis Pitts, Lazone Gray, Jimmy Bullocks, Monica, Monique, and others. On April the 4th, Ms. Opal Lee of the Juneteenth Board of Directors will be here for a walk through our community, highlighting some of the historical. I mean, I'm very proud of the fact the role that Kansas played in the Civil War. And I don't think we can play that up enough, because God created us all equal. She will be here April the 4th, and I'd like to request a proclamation from the county. We'll be going over to the city, and incidentally, I'm looking forward to working with Doug, because he and I are working on another program for Heather Hyatt. You know who Heather Hyatt was? She was killed by the Ku Klux Klan. Yeah. So, in closing, I just wanted to stand for any questions, comments, or concerns. You know, my connection to Shawnee County Commission, and I've been coming down here since I was just a young boy. And I guess that's why I thought in part, you know, that's why Mr. Cook came out, oh, I didn't handle it for you, Sonny. You don't have to say anything. And I said to myself, you don't know me. So back in 1979, I asked Joe Douglas, and incidentally, him and his wife gave us, me and my wife, away in our marriage. I knew him very well. We used to hold talks at Sumner School, you know, an open mic where we would discuss Brown v. Board. He was a trailblazer, but he's not the only trailblazer. I met so many people after coming to the plains of Kansas in 1969. It just blew my mind away. I went back to Oklahoma and talked to the people down there, and the connection between the two states is just awesome with the first Kansas color. I carry the flag around a lot. I know a lot of y'all say, damn, man, you taking that flag around everywhere you go. I try not to forget it. I have multiple sclerosis. I have been diagnosed since '88, and sometimes it's kind of hard for me to get comfortable and to carry the flag because I've protested so much in all these years. I got arthritis in my hands, and I don't feel good all the time. When I was here last Thursday, you noticed the police came in and I went out. I just want to say for the public, it was nothing that I did. The young man could not see me, and he backed into me twice. And I suppose the sun was in his eyes because, you know, he hopped out the car crying, tearful. I gave him a hug and didn't know what else to do. And he gave me his keys and said he was at fault, which he was. So in closing, I hope that we can find some kind of suitable recognition for the first black fire chief. Him and Natalie and me and my wife and others would really appreciate that. I asked him, what would you like most? And he said he would like to be remembered at his first fire station that he served. It was back when Benny Davis was on the commission. Y'all remember Benny? And some of the others, Eric Rucker, Velma Parrish, Hensley, even my good friend, Vic Miller. He would probably be whistling about right now. Hey, Sonny, let's wrap it up. So anyway, are there any questions, comments, or concerns?
Thank you, Sonny. You're always welcome.
Yeah, I guess you did a good job. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonny.
And I'd like to invite everybody over to Scott Bagnon's school. We're having a program.
His keys. Sonny, your keys.
In order to
Sonny.
discuss.
Your keys.
See? Yeah, it's old. Yeah. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Andrew Howell, Shawnee County Election Commissioner. Just wanted to go over just for a moment about the schedule of the elections this year. We're going to be holding the primary on August the 4th, and then the November election is going to be on November the 3rd. There is a little bit of confusion, I think, among the public as it relates to the Democrats. I know are holding a presidential preference primary. I'm not going to go deep into explaining it. What we've actually done, and I kind of want people to know, what we've done on our website is made it pretty clear that we're not running that particular primary. The presidential preference primary, how those are handled is specific to each party. So you'll need to, on our website, we have both the phone number for each of the parties in Kansas as well as a direct link to their website. So I'm encouraging people, rather than me trying to explain that, because I know those processes can change, and I actually tried one day to look through some of those, and one document was 250 pages, so I kind of gave up a little bit and thought it was better just to link to it, as well as give a phone number for each of the parties as to how they're handling their respective either primary or presidential preference caucus events. So we're getting a lot of phone calls in the office about that, so I just wanted to let the public know we've got a specific disclaimer that says we are not running the presidential preference primaries or caucuses on our website, but we're letting people know on that website how to get in touch with each of the parties to ask any questions you may have about that. I think there's a little bit of confusion among some of the public about some of the terms and some of the timing. So just a reminder, the first election that we are actually going to be handling at the Shawnee County Election Office will be that August 4th primary. So that's a little bit out there. But we are handling those phone calls. Additionally, we've recently sent out, I think most of you should have received your registration card. Part of the reason we send that out early in the year is to make sure if you have any questions about what we have on record as it relates to your registration address, feel free to call us and let us know about that. That's part of our NCOA, National Change of Address, NVRA requirement every year to keep those records updated. So that's what's going on at the election office. If you've got any additional questions about that, I'd be happy to try to answer those. But just a reminder to the public, really wanted to emphasize, you're welcome to go to our website, and that the parties are actually managing that presidential preference primary process. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Anyone else? What do we have next?
Did anybody up there at the table have anything to talk about?
Mr. Mays, what have you been up to?
I don't have anything to add, really.
Commissioner Cook?
I've got nothing. See?
There wasn't anything, unless you had something.
I can't think of anything. Yeah. All right.
Item 6, executive session.
All right. I want to make a motion to go into executive session for a period not to exceed 20 minutes to discuss 2 items. 10 minutes to discuss personnel matters of non-elected personnel, specifically to discuss certain classified and unclassified positions. And another 10 minutes for preliminary discussion of the acquisition of real property, specifically related to parks. No action is expected at this time. Second. Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carries 3-0. We are now in executive session.
Employees. She's retiring.
You'll get the cake.
Who's going to tell us when we're done?